welcome to the class. So thank you for connecting, and if today is your first day, thank you so much, and I hope you will enjoy the class. The structure will be very similar to every day. We will continue with a similar structure, but new vocabulary, new expressions, new material, but the structure will be very similar, and I hope everybody is doing good. And the weather is very nice here in Dublin. But subtitles, there are subtitles available if you want to follow my conversation, and maybe it's difficult to understand me. I hope you can understand me clearly. You can use the captions and the subtitles to help. The majority of the captions are correct, but there are some little errors with the subtitles, but probably it will help. Hopefully we have no problem with the connection. Hopefully we've no problem with the technology. I think this week sometimes the connection is a little slow, so I hope everything is okay, and I hope the class is clear and you can understand everything. I hope there's no disruption. We have my dog in the garden, so it's possible in the class you maybe hear the dog, and we have a big family at home, 6 people, so maybe there's some distraction for me, or hopefully no big distraction, but we will continue, and probably it's the same for you. Okay, so this is the first picture from yesterday, and every morning on Instagram I put the pictures from Dublin, and this is a picture of the wall in Dublin, an old historic wall, and it was created in 1240, so almost 900 years ago nearly. And every day I put some pictures of Dublin on Instagram, so you can see some very nice pictures of Instagram, and I'll show you the link if you want to connect on Instagram. The page is @inglés, and I put some pictures from Dublin and also some quotations and some things related to the class, so that's interesting and possible if you want to connect. Twitter is the same more or less as Facebook, the same content practically, and YouTube channel is available, so if you want and if you prefer to watch the class later on YouTube, it's available on the channel @inglés or English classes, and also on Facebook. The classes are recorded, so it's possible some people, of course you are watching live at the moment, but other people can watch recorded, and this is fantastic, and some people watch later in the day, so that's amazing, and YouTube is the second possibility. So if you want to leave a comment in the Facebook chat to say hello and to say where you are from, because we have people from many different places and people with very different languages, so it's incredible. Everybody is trying to learn English, and it's difficult because people have different languages and people have different levels of English, so that's very important, and I try to keep that in mind during the class. Okay, so the agenda for today: first we continue with a grammar document, an introduction document. This is very important, and every day it's important you're familiar with the technical expressions, so I only introduce the expressions because we will focus more today on an article and also phrasal verbs and idioms. But this document, introduction document, is very important, and I will explain for maybe 2 minutes the introduction document and the terms, because it's the base of English and it's the base of my classes as well, and for you to learn English it's necessary that you are familiar with the terms and the technical vocabulary first. Okay, so now I will share my screen and we can begin, and I will show you the introduction document which I am speaking about. So this is the document. In my opinion, it's the most important document. It is the key to understand English, and for me there are 3 sections. The first section is the use of English, number 1. The second section are the tenses, number 2, and the third section in yellow is just grammar concepts and other grammar ideas. Okay, so the first area, use of English, in my opinion is probably the most important when you are learning English. Okay, and in use of English we have accents, so different English around the world, in Australia, New Zealand, United States, England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland. we have a lot of different accents and different velocities, and this is extremely hard for you when you listen to English speakers, because not everybody is clear, and that's a big area. The best way to improve this is to watch movies, okay, watch videos on YouTube, watch people speaking, and also in reality to speak to lots of different people. That's the best way in reality to find people to practice and to speak English frequently from different parts of the world. That's the best way to improve your listening, and it's maybe the biggest area to improve in English. It's extremely difficult. The second topic are phrasal verbs. So phrasal verb, the concept of the phrasal verb is a verb and a preposition combined, and it's possible a literal significance, but frequently it's a second completely different significance. And we have thousands and thousands of phrasal verbs, and they are so common, so frequent, so important. We use them all the time with family, with friends, professional situations, social situations. Every moment we use phrasal verbs, and in movies, in series, we have phrasal verbs everywhere. So basically it's a verb and a preposition. It's possible literal significance, but frequently it's a second double significance, which is completely different, and it's important you recognize and understand them, because if you do not, you are probably lost and you do not understand the sentence. So they're very key, and we have thousands of phrasal verbs. Similarly with idioms, so idioms are expressions, and we use idioms all the time in conversation to make English funnier, to make English more entertaining, and we have thousands of idioms and expressions, and a big part for you to master English, to really control the language, is to be very familiar with all the idioms and phrasal verbs. So for me, this area probably is the most important in learning English, definitely. Also conversation and pronunciation for sure is very important, so you need to find somebody to practice speaking conversation, and hopefully they can correct you in your speaking, okay, because speaking is a big part. Listening, speaking, writing, reading and grammar, they're the 5 areas that are so important in every language, and English is exactly the same. So speaking is very important, and pronunciation. In English we have a lot of irregular sounds and irregular pronunciation, phonetic words. So during the class I try to identify and try to help with the pronunciation, and that's a big part of English as well. So in the class possibly we may be able to practice some speaking. So if you want to participate, I am using Zoom at the moment, and the code and the ID for Zoom is here. So possibly you want to connect with Zoom at the moment to ask a question or to participate, and it's possible if you want, okay? The second area are the tenses. So in every language we have, I think in every language you have tenses. Do you speak in the present? Do you speak in the past? Do you speak in the future? And in English, at the beginning, it's necessary you are familiar with the terms. For example, present simple, past simple, future simple, present continuous, past continuous, future continuous, present perfect, past perfect, and future perfect. They are the most frequent, they're the most important, and they are very common, and it's your responsibility to be very familiar with the term, all these terms, the simple, continuous and perfect. Normally I explain in detail. You can find in my earlier classes a lot of explanation, but today I'm just introducing the words because it's very important for sure. So after the simple, continuous, perfect, we have the infinitive, which is the base. We have the conditional. We also have the active and the passive. So that area you can see here on the list: active, passive, conditional, infinitive. This document is important, and every grammar book is more or less the same with the structure. Okay, so this page, I will put this page on under my video in the comment section after the class, and you can find this document, because during the class I mention a lot the technical vocabulary. I mention the tenses: present perfect, past perfect, present simple, past simple, future perfect, present continuous, past continuous, future continuous. So you need to be very familiar with the concepts, okay? And similarly with grammar, we have a lot of technical words for grammar. For example, the noun the adjective, the article, the adverb, the modal verb, preposition, and they're the most important here. You can see noun, article, countable, uncountable, adjective, comparative, superlative, adverbs, modal verbs, prepositions, and we continue. We have possessive adjective, we have possessive pronoun, we have object pronoun. So this is very technical, very technical. And in my earlier videos, again, you can see the explanation in detail, but it's fundamental that you understand the terms and you understand the concepts first. Okay, and that's very important. And maybe I will make another video specifically to explain every part, and you can access the video very easily. Okay, also the demonstratives, this, that, these, determiners, the questions, suffixes, prefixes, linkers and conjunctions, and that's the most important terms and vocabulary. Also we have writing, which is important, but exam preparation. So exams are very popular and very important. The Cambridge exam is very popular, the first certificate, the advanced certificate, the proficiency certificate. The IELTS exam is very popular, and I have maybe 11 years of experience preparing people for these exams. And also online I have a specific webinar. So on Wednesday, for example today, I have a specific webinar in relation to IELTS at 4 o'clock. So you are welcome to join. You are welcome to come to the webinar at 4 o'clock. It's on Zoom. I can give you the details with Messenger or with WhatsApp. So if you want to contact me directly to confirm your place, that's available today at 4 p.m. in Ireland, and there's a small fee of €2.90, but we will focus primarily on the IELTS exam and every part of the exam. For example, reading, writing, speaking and listening, and hopefully we can have some debate or discussion as well. But on Thursday, tomorrow, we have a webinar tomorrow for the advanced exam at 4 o'clock, and also on Saturday at 1 o'clock we have a webinar for the first certificate for the B2. So these are all possible if you want. Okay, so this document is the most important. It's the introduction, and it's really key for understanding the terms and the technical vocabulary, because during the class I use technical vocabulary frequently. So to understand the class, it's necessary to understand this document. Okay, so that's very important. Now we will begin with an article, so a similar structure from yesterday and a similar structure to Monday. So this is an article from the BBC, and the story is in relation to entertainment and arts. So it's about a British artist, and it's about a painting, an enormous or a giant painting. It created a lot of money. So this is the story, and this is the man in the middle. It's very difficult to see the man, but he is an artist, and his name is Sacha Jaffrey. But he created this painting in Dubai in a hotel for 8 months. He was working on this painting for 8 months, and finally he created it. But he sold the painting for, I think, €80 million or £80 million, I think. So let me just double check. Well, they say, sorry, £45 million, my mistake. So it's an interesting story, but the money he generated will go to charity. So it's a very good story, and in relation to vocabulary and in relation to grammar, it's really interesting as well. So first I will read the text for pronunciation and for the words, and after reading I will return to explore the vocabulary and to explore the expressions. Okay, so let me move this here and everybody can see. Also at the bottom I have an area for class notes, so during the class I can make some notes and comments that you can learn, but also after the class I put all the notes at the bottom of the video in the comment section. Okay, so this is the article, and the title is "The British Artist's Giant Painting Raises £45 million for children's charities," in the plural. Okay, so we continue a little, and just a little caption is, Sacha Jaffrey worked solidly on the painting on his own for 8 months. The world's largest painting which was created by British artist Sasha Jaffrey, has been sold for £45 million to raise funds for children's charities. Jaffrey spent 8 months painting the 1,600 square metre, 17,000 square foot, difficult when you learn English, the numbers, and artwork in a deserted hotel's ballroom in Dubai. He planned to sell it in 70 parts, but French cryptocurrency businessman André Abdoune has bought the whole work. The price makes it one of the most expensive paintings ever sold at auction by a living artist. Jaffrey said the full $62 million would go to Dubai Cares, UNICEF, UNESCO and Global Gift Foundation to help disadvantaged children in countries like Brazil, India, Indonesia and South Africa. So very interesting. And we'll continue a little further reading. Jaffrey took inspiration from pictures sent by children from around the world. The 44-year-old artist from London originally hoped to raise $30 million. He told BBC News, so that's important as well, he was blown away, that's a very good expression, to have doubled that. I was really overwhelmed by what happened to raise that amount of money from one painting in one night. And finally, Jaffrey started by putting out an appeal for children to send him their pictures representing how they felt during the pandemic. He got responses from 140 countries, which he used for inspiration. He said, not too difficult. I like the BBC website personally because it's very clear, it's very creative at the same time, it's very direct, so the vocabulary and the style is normally very direct, very clear, but at the same time it uses a lot of very appropriate and very advanced vocabulary. So it's a perfect mix of very clear and very simple English, but also very creative and very fluent English. So the first pronunciation is giant. So giant is very big, but we can also say huge. So it's very typical to say giant or huge. Enormous. So they are the typical words, and the word huge is the most important, I suppose, because it's a bit difficult for pronunciation, and in Espanol you have gigante and enorme. So huge is very specific, I think, to English, and the significance is enormous. This verb is very, very important, to raise. So there's a difference between two verbs, to rise and to raise. And I'm going to show you here, because every week we find this situation. It's a very frequent situation. So the difference is maybe the subject and the object. So I'm just waiting one moment. The second verb is typical, the object at the beginning. For example, the sun rises, the temperature rises, the price rises. So for the second verb, to rise, it's typical, the sun at the beginning, temperature, price. That's very, very important at the beginning. So the price rises after 6 o'clock, the temperature rises after 10 o'clock in the morning, and the sun rises at 6 o'clock in the morning. But the verb to raise is a little bit different, because usually it's the person at doing the action. So I raise my hand, I raise my computer. It has the significance to lift. So the two significances are very similar, but there is a big difference in the use. So the first one is I raise my hand, but it's very typical for a child. So if I raise my child, the significance is to educate, to give money, to help, to feed every day, every week. I raise the child. So that's very typical. I raise a question. In the class, you can raise your hand, and on Zoom, I know it's typical, the option to raise your hand. So the action is me doing the action. I raise my hand, but the opposite is rise, and it's the subject is the sun, the temperature, or the price. And here it's very typical for money. So I raise money, or the artist raises money, and the significance to raise money is to generate money for charity. So it's very typical in that context to raise money. And fund is in the noun, and it is a verb as well, to fund. So funds in the plural is another way to say a collection of money. Okay, so do you have the funds for a holiday? Do you have the funds to survive in Ireland? Do you have the money to survive? But it is possible a verb. So who is funding you? Who is giving you the money? Who is supplying you with the money? So it is a verb to fund, and the verb to raise money is the same as to raise funds. And it's very typical, the noun, a fundraiser, is extremely typical. So a fundraiser, here normally it's the person or a thing, and in this case it's an event. So a fundraiser is always an event or an initiative to generate money, usually for charity, but it's possible for a company, it's possible for a club, a sports club. So the verb is to raise money, to raise fund. A fundraiser is the noun, or there is a verb to fundraise. Okay, so it's very important situation. And here the painting raises, so it's the present, so it generates £45 million for children's, and this is the possession, so this is the rule for possession, the charity of children, but it's more typical in English, children's charity. The pen of Brian, Brian's pen. So that structure is very important for the possession. And charity is normally singular with the Y, but in plural we change the Y to IES. Okay, so this is a little irregular in English. So one charity is singular and plural is two charities. It's similar with other words that end with Y. For example, a fly, and then you have two flies. Okay, then you have this one sky, and then you have two skies. Okay, so that's the general rule with the Y in the singular. It normally changes to IES. Okay, and here's exactly the same, the charities in the plural. Good, so that's just one headline and one title. The next paragraph, again, it's possession, the world's largest painting. So large is the adjective, and this is related to the comparative and the superlative. So this painting is large, it's huge, it's enormous, but this painting is larger than this painting. So the comparative, it's normally ER and than, larger than. But this painting, the next painting, is the largest. Okay, so it's the maximum. This is called the superlative. And the general rule, when the adjective is a syllable, one syllable, happy, we normally add ER, happier, and then the superlative is happiest, big, bigger, biggest. So that's the general rule. When the adjective is one syllable, we normally add ER for the comparative and then EST for the superlative. So this is one syllable, large, and we normally say larger and the largest. Okay, which, so this is the relative pronoun. The technical word is the relative pronoun, and we have which, who, that. They're the typical relative pronouns. So which is a substitution for the painting, because every verb in English you need the subject. This is different from Spanish and it's different from Portuguese, and it's classic and very important because in Spanish it's frequent to eliminate and to omit the subject. In Portuguese you can forget, you can omit the subject, but in English it's necessary to have the subject. And when you do not have the subject, it's very possible it, for example, it is raining, it is 6 o'clock, but in this situation it's a pronoun which. So which is the substitution for the painting. It's practically the same as that, so you can use which or that. Was created. Okay, this is interesting. So this is an example of the passive. So to explain the difference between the active and the passive, so the British artist created the painting, that's the active, subject, verb, object. The artist created in the past, create is the present, and regular in the past is created. So the artist created the painting is the active, and to create the passive we change the position of the two. So the painting, we introduce an extra verb to be in the past because created was the past. So the painting was, and the participle of the original verb, created by the artist. So that's a perfect example of the active and the passive. So to create the passive we introduce an extra verb to be, auxiliary verb here, and we also have the participle, which is the third column in school. You learn the columns go, went, gone, create, created, created. So the third column is the participle, and that's used to create the passive. And normally we have by. So that's a very, very good example of the active and the passive. And this is the reason I have this in the introduction, because it's very frequent and it's very common. Okay, British artist Sasha Jeffrey has been sold for. Okay, and I think that's exactly the same, because the artist, the active, the artist sells the painting, but this painting was sold by the artist in the past simple, but here it's the present perfect, so it has been. So the extra verb to be in the passive is in the perfect. So it's complicated, very advanced, but a really advanced and really fluent example of the passive. So this is important. So there's two examples of the passive in the first paragraph, and we saw the passive in the simple, and here we have the passive in the present perfect. So that's a very, very, very technical explanation for you, but basically this is the auxiliary verb, the extra verb to be, in the present perfect. And remember the difference between the present perfect and the past perfect. So the past perfect is usually the period that's finished before another action in the past simple, but the present perfect is finished, but it's related to the present. So that's a complicated explanation, and normally in the introduction I explain the technical complicated grammar concepts, and this is just one. Okay, sold, so the verb is to sell, it's irregular. You sell chocolate, you sell food, but the past is sold. So I sell, but the past is sold. Okay, and also you need to be very clear. To sell, I sold is the past, and a sale is the noun. Okay, so you go to the shop and there's a special offer, there is a discount, and this is a sale. It's like a bargain. Okay, so yesterday we saw the vocabulary a bargain. So a sale is practically the same. A sale, a bargain, a discount. And the verb is to sell. So a sale is the noun, and the person is a seller. So this is important because frequently it's confused. So I have heard a lot of people speaking English as the second language, and they confuse this structure a lot. It's a very, very frequently confused family. So you need to be very clear. To sell in the infinitive, I sell in the present. The past, I sold. The participle, sold, I have sold in the perfect. And the noun, a sale. So you're looking for a sale, and the person is a seller. And more information, we can say on sale. So the property is on sale. The ticket, maybe the tickets are on sale, so the tickets are available. So the tickets are on sale. For sale is maybe for the property. Okay, so the house is for sale. So this is the little detail that's very important, and it's very commonly confused. So the tickets or the products, the shoes, the clothes are on sale, but the property or the house is for sale. Okay, and the final example for a phrasal verb is sold out. Okay, so when you have no more tickets, when you have no more products, it's not available, because in is good, in the shop, in the house, but if it's sold out, you have no more. There is zero available. Okay, none available. So very, very important family of words. You have an example of the past simple, the noun, the person, the phrasal verb. So very, very good family. And here it's just simple, the participle. Okay, to raise funds, no problem, for children's charities. Jeffrey spent. Okay, so spend is the present, it's irregular verb, so the infinitive is to spend, and the past is spent, irregular. So another example of a past simple, irregular verb. We have a lot of irregular verbs in the past simple, and this is extremely difficult when you learn English, to master and to control all the past simple verbs. Okay, so spend in the present with the D, and spent in the past. The participle is spent also. Okay, so he spent 8 months painting square meters. Difficult pronunciation. This word is very important. A deserted hotel. Okay, so there are two words that look and seem very, very similar, but they have a completely different significance. So the desert and the dessert. Okay, so two nouns and two substantivos in Espanol, but the desert is typically the Sahara. In Africa, you have the desert. It's the space with no houses, with no construction. It's just sand, arena in Espanol. So the desert is the area with no construction, with sand. It's typical in Africa. You have North Africa and you have Sub-Sahara Africa. So the Sahara is the desert, number one. And the second word with two S's is completely different. The desert is the first one, but dessert, so the pronunciation is completely different. The dessert is typical in the restaurant. So after your food, you have your first course, second course, third course, and in Spanish you say first plate, second plate, third plate, which is possible in English, but it's more typical first course in the restaurant, second course, third course, and usually the third course is the dessert. Okay, for example, chocolate, profiteroles, creme brulee, that's the dessert. Okay, so very tasty. And the desert is the Sahara. So completely different significance, completely different pronunciation, and completely different meaning in the sentence. And here, it's the adjective. So it's possible to say at the moment, the city is deserted. Okay, which is the significance of the first word. So in Spanish, the second word, dessert, is postre. But here you can use the noun, but the adjective is deserted. Okay, and it's typical for the street or for the building. So at the moment, because of the pandemic, Dublin city is usually deserted. So it's practically empty. There is nobody in the city. It's deserted. Okay, and there is possible a verb to desert is a little negative, and it means to leave. So if you desert the army, you abandon. It's almost the same as to abandon. Okay, so it is flexible, it is common, and it's important, and it's very good in different contexts. So here it's the adjective. The hotel ballroom is the specific room for dancing, because a ball is another. Okay, you have a football, which is, everybody understands a football, and a ball is round. That's clear. But another significance of a ball is a dance. So if you go to the ball, for example, Cinderella, I think, went to the ball. So the ball is the event, it's the big party, it's the big dance. Okay, and a ballroom is the room with the dancing, the room in the hotel. And here it's deserted, so it's empty. So this is the location for the painting. The man created the enormous painting in the ballroom, typical for weddings, because it was empty. There is another expression with ball. In English we say to have a ball, and this is very typical, informal, for conversation, for family. It's very common in my family. And for example, I go on holiday, I go on a trip, I go on vacation, and my family say to me, Brian, have a ball. And the significance is to have a fantastic time, have a really good time. So you go to the party and I say, have a ball. And that really means enjoy. And probably it's connected to the ball in the party, the dance. But the expression is to have a ball, and the significance is to have a good time. Probably a little informal, but extremely frequent and extremely common. Okay, so have a ball means have a good time. Of course, you can say on the ball, which means you are very precise, you're very intelligent, you're very effective. So if you are working and you react to the job very well, you do something very, very good, you are on the ball. So you are controlling everything, you have possession. So it's related to sport. But if you're on the ball, you're very active, you're very alert. Okay, to be alert. Okay, so the spelling there is a little bad. So to be alert, very good vocabulary and very good expression. Plan is the verb. So plan is the verb in the present. It's a little irregular because you have two N's in the past. And remember, the normal creation for the verb in the past simple, the normal creation is ed. For example, look, looked. Ask, asked. That's the normal creation of the past simple, ed. But the infinitive here is to plan. I plan. and in the past we have two N's, so it's a little irregular, and this is difficult in English to remember all the detail. Okay, here's an example, the verb to sell. So you sell with the E, and remember the past is sold, and we explained this already, so that's a good example. And here we have the object pronoun. So he planned to sell it. What exactly is it? In this case, it's the substitution for the painting. Okay, so he planned to sell this painting, to sell it or to sell the painting in 70 parts, so no problem. Has bought, so this is another good example of the tense. So the verb is to buy, the infinitive, and that's no problem, but the past is irregular. So to buy, in the present I buy, the past is I bought. Okay, so it's another example of irregular verb, and again, this is tricky for you, and I have a lot of sympathy for you because we have a lot of irregular verbs. For me, it's easy because it's natural, but for you, it's very, very difficult. But this structure is the structure of the present perfect, because to create the perfect tense, you need to introduce the auxiliary, the extra verb have. That's the present perfect, have plus the participle. This is the reason I identify the present perfect, because we have the extra verb have and the participle. So definitely it's the present perfect. The past perfect is the extra verb have in the past, had, plus the participle. But the significance of the present perfect is usually the period or the action in the past. It's finished, it's completed, but it's relevant and it is related to now. So here, the action to buy the painting was in the past. It's finished, but it's related and it has consequences to now because this story continues. A little bit tricky concept, but that's an example and an explanation of the present perfect. So he has bought the whole work. So this is the article. Remember the difference between the indefinite article and the definite article. A house or the house. You have two pronunciations, a or a, no problem. So a house or the house. A house in general, but the house is specific. And here it's specific work. So this is interesting because the translation for Spanish is obra. Okay, so for art, a piece of art or artwork, this is the two possibilities. So a piece of art is the item or one bit of art, okay, but artwork is the same. So work is the noun, como obra in Espanol. It's also possible construction work is obra de construcción, and here it's exactly the same. So very important, but of course the verb is to work, and you need to be clear the difference between work and job. So technically the difference is work is the verb. I work in Dublin, I work online, you work in Ireland, you work in Brazil. So the verb to work, but the noun is the job. My job is a doctor. Your job is a teacher. So your job is your function, it's your profession, and the verb is to work. But it's more complicated because it's possible work as the noun also, okay? So it is a little bit complicated and it is very typically confused. So basically the verb is to work and job is the noun or the profession. But in another situation, the work is possible a noun. For example, I have a lot of work. Okay, I have a lot of activity to do. I have a lot of work, but I work in the school, I work in Dublin, but my job is a teacher, my job is a sales assistant, for example. Okay, so very important. And the significance here of whole is very important. You need to be clear the difference between whole and whole. So the pronunciation is exactly the same. The second significance is hueco in Espanol. You're on the road and you have a hole in the road. Or my jumper, my jacket, I have a hole in my jacket. It's like a hueco. Okay, and the first significance whole is total. The whole week, the whole day, the whole year. It's like total or entire. Very frequent, very common, and very, very good English. So here the significance is the whole work, the entire work, all the work, because originally it's in 70 parts, but he buys the whole work, everything. Okay, no problem here. I think it's very clear. There's one structure that's very important. One of, So this is a very frequent structure. Dublin is one of the best cities in Europe. Okay, Ireland is one of the smallest countries in Europe. So this structure, one of, is very typical, but it's necessary you remember the plural. Always it's plural because one of is from the plural. Today is one of the nicest days. So with this structure, you always need to remember the plural, and here is the plural. So it's one of the most expensive paintings. So it's not the most expensive painting, singular, it's one of the collection. So it's very simple, very important, very frequent, and sometimes people confuse the spelling with the S. So it's necessary to remember always the plural and the S, okay? At is for location. I will meet my friend at the cafe. I will meet my friend at the river. So for specific location, we say at. Also for time, we say at because it's specific location. I meet my friend at 10 o'clock. But here it's the specific location for the auction. And the verb to auction is a specific verb, and it's typical, similar to sell, but you know the situation when you sell the painting and you say €10 here. Okay, once, twice, sold to the man for €10, but it's possible somebody says €15, €20. So this is an auction, okay, and it's a noun, an auction, and it's a verb, to auction. So the verb is to auction, but here it's the noun, and because the noun begins with a vowel, A-E-I-O-U, it's necessary to have the article with the N. So this is the general rule. When the noun begins with an when the noun begins with a vowel, it's generally necessary to say an. For example, apple, an apple, orange, an orange. I think you probably understand, but it's important as well. And the person is an auctioneer. So very interesting as well. So sometimes the suffix is very important in English, and the suffix "ear" represents a person. For example, we can say a pioneer is another example. Okay, a pioneer, that's another example. But normally we have ER, we have IST, we have OR. They're the typical suffixes, and remember the suffix is the letters at the end of the word, and the typical suffixes to represent a person is ER, IST, OR. For example, director, painter, I think, maybe I'm not confused, scientist, dentist. So they're the typical representations of a person, that the study of the prefix and the study of the suffix is very important in my opinion, and very useful. Okay, and then the final paragraph here is an example of the conditional. So in reality, the conditional is very flexible, and in reality the conditional is less strict. But in the book, in the theory, the rules for the conditional are very hard, and they are a little difficult. They're a little depressing because the rules are very strict in the book. You have the zero conditional, first conditional, second conditional, third conditional, mixed conditional, and basically there are rules. If you use the present, it's necessary a different tense. But in my opinion, in reality, in conversation, it's definitely more flexible, and it's related to if. So if it rains today, I will not go to the city centre. Okay, so the conditional is difficult, and here it's the conditional would go, in theory, in the future, would go, so that the full money would go, because it has not happened yet. So it's the plan would go to the groups. Okay, the vocabulary, disadvantage. So we recognize an advantage is something positive, and advantaged is maybe again adjective. So without the D, it's the noun. An advantage is the noun. So you have an advantage in sport, you have an advantage in life. Okay, so we can say advantage, or there's another possibility, a head start. So remember, the noun begins with a vowel, a. Because it begins with a vowel, it's necessary an in the article, and we have another expression, a head start. So this is an expression, if you have a head start, the significance is you have a little advantage. And this comes from sport like athletics, and you have the race, two people in the race, and you should start in the same line, but one person starts with a head start, they have a little advantage. Okay, so the adjective is with the D, advantaged, and the negative adjective is disadvantaged, and that's typical for the vocabulary for children. So the children who are born in maybe less fortunate or different situations, they are maybe disadvantaged children. Remember, this is classic, so singular is one child, and it's necessary you remember this all the time because it's a frequent error, especially when you speak very quickly. So one child, two children, irregular. One child, three children, one child, two children. So singular and plural for child and children is important. One child and two children. Okay. Here's another example of singular, country with the Y. You remember at the beginning we said sky, skies, fly, flies, and country with the Y is singular, and countries with the plural is IES. And very good. I think Brazil, we have people today watching from Brazil. India, I think no. But Indonesia, I think possibly we have some people today watching from Indonesia. And South Africa, I think no, because in South Africa, I think the #1 language, well, a popular language is English. I think you have other languages in South Africa, but okay. So that's an example of the article. And finally, because there's one brilliant expression here, I want to teach this expression. Because the rest of the sentence is clear. The 44-year-old. So this is one word. And the hyphen. Okay, so this object is the hyphen. And that's very important in English. The function of the hyphen is to combine two words. So in this case, the hyphen is combining three words. So 44-year-old are three words. But with the hyphen, you can create one word. So this is one adjective. And that's very, very important because I can say I am 23 years old. I think that's correct. But he is, I am a 23-year-old boy. So that's a little different. So here it's a sentence. And, well, the two are sentences, but the second one is the adjective. Okay, so it's just a curiosity and it's interesting. So I think the sentence is clear. Also, hope is important because typically in Latin, you need to say to hope, to wait, and to expect. So in Spanish, for example, esperar. And I think esperar has the significance of three significances in English. Esperar has the significance I hope. Esperar has the significance to wait. And esperar has the significance to expect. But in English, they're a little bit different. So to hope is you have no maybe confidence, you have no guarantee. So you hope the weather, I hope the weather is good today. To wait is with time. And typically in English, it's to wait for. So I wait for my friend, I wait for the bus. And to expect is a little more guarantee. So you have confidence for the future. You believe, you have a little guarantee, it's more concrete. So you expect it to be good weather today because you have the information from the prediction. If you have no information from the prediction or the forecast, you hope. So it's a little difference, but I think in Portuguese, I think in Spanish, it's esperar for the three situations. Okay. So here it's fingers crossed. He hoped to raise or to generate. This is the expression, he was blown away. So he is the subject, was is the extra verb, and this is the participle. So this represents the passive, but the active is to blow away. Okay, but we normally say to be blown away. And it's a little difficult. So the verb is to blow, like the food is very hot, and you blow the food. You have the flour, and you blow the flour. And blow away is obviously not in this position. So in the road you have your bag and it's very windy and the bag blows away. Okay, but it's a metaphor in relation to when you are surprised, when you are amazed, when you are shocked. So in football, the result was a big surprise. So the team had the victory, but it's a big surprise, and everybody was blown away. Everybody was shocked. Everybody was surprised, completely surprised. So the significance here, he was completely surprised. He was completely shocked. He was completely amazed. To double, and it's the present perfect, to double the expectation. So the expectation for the price was €20, and he doubled the price, is €40, and he was totally surprised. He was blown away. Good example, very good vocabulary. And finally, there's a word here, I was really overwhelmed. Pronunciation is difficult, very fluent word, very common. The verb is to overwhelm. Okay, you can see over is typically excessive. Overeat, overdrink, oversleep is excessive. So you sleep too much, demasiado. You eat too much, overeat, overdrink, oversleep. To be, this is with the verb to be overwhelmed. Okay, so first, the verb is to overwhelm. And the translation in other languages, you can see here, it's a very important word. To overwhelm in Arabic, Bulgarian, Chinese, Croatian, well, I'm not going to pronounce because I cannot pronounce in other languages, but Dutch, French, German, Hebrew, Hindi, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Malay, Polish, Portuguese, opprimir, Spanish, abrumar, I never heard that word before in my life, and then Swedish, Thai, Vietnamese. We have no Indonesian on the dictionary and no Filipino. Okay, so sorry to everybody. But to overwhelm is typical for the teacher. So this class, you have a lot of information in this class, so maybe this class overwhelms you because it's too much information, it's too much structures, too many structures. So it's possible, typical for a person, but it's common in the passive. So the work overwhelms me. I was overwhelmed by the work. So it's very typical in the active and the passive to be overwhelmed. And this is a perfect example because he was, so this is connected to overwhelmed. That's the structure of the passive. And so he was completely surprised. He was, again, shocked. So it's a synonym to be blown away. So really good vocabulary and very good example. Okay, and that's everything. So really good article, and I'm happy because normally we do one paragraph and it's we don't have time, but today we did a lot of work, a lot of paragraphs, and it's excellent vocabulary. So now I want to finish with a few idioms. Okay, so we have, remember, idioms is in the first category, use of English. Use of English, we have different accents, phrasal verbs, and idioms, conversation. So that's the use of English, and idioms are a big part of English. They're like expressions, in Espanol, frases hechas. And this list is a typical list, and you have a lot of lists, PDF documents available online. You have a lot of material available online, no problem. And this is just one typical article. I did not create this document. I took this document from the internet, and I can put the document in the comment section. But we stopped last week with pitch black. So the last expression we said was pitch black. Pitch is normally for sport or for football, the football pitch. But it's more complicated, it's more flexible, because we say the pitch of his voice, or the pitch in music. So pitch is like the high point, I think. It's typical in baseball. If you play baseball and you throw the ball, you pitch the ball. So to pitch is to throw. And it's typical with the frequency, with the radio, because the frequency throws, it moves. So that's the pitch. And the same with your voice. Your voice moves, so it's the pitch in your voice. So the first example is baseball. And in America it's very common. In Ireland we do not really play baseball. But baseball, you have a pitcher, and the verb is to pitch the ball. It's like to throw the ball. So the pitcher is the person, and it's more common because it's typical in business. If you have an idea, a business idea, and you pitch your idea to somebody, you explain your idea, or you say your idea to somebody. Typical to sell. So I want to sell my jacket to you. I want you to buy my jacket, and I say to you, this jacket is the best jacket in Ireland. It's the most beautiful jacket. It's very popular. So this is my pitch. Okay, so it's very typical, a sales pitch, and that means your ability or your offer in typical with description. Okay, so your sales pitch. So there's another expression, pitch black. So I think this means maybe the maximum point, because remember, with the frequency and the voice, the pitch of your voice is the maximum, and with the radio, the pitch of is the maximum. So pitch black has the significance completely black. This room is dark, it's pitch black, it's completely black. So it's a very typical word in conversation, only with dark colours. For example, we never say pitch bright, no, we say pitch black or pitch dark, so completely dark. Okay, your place in the sun, I think, is not very typical. Let's look at the explanation. Okay, so maybe it's a metaphor. So place in the sun is usually good, it's usually fantastic, because you're very happy and you're very rich. So this new job for you is your place in the sun. It's a metaphor to say it's your very happy place. It's not very common, but I suppose you need to be careful and to understand it. The next expression is very, very common. Okay, so the verb is to pop, and it's typical for the breakfast. So you make breakfast and you make toast. Okay, so you have bread and you put bread in the toaster. So the toaster is the machine, and the bread that is cooked is called toast. Okay, so when the bread is in the toaster and you wait for 5 minutes, and then eventually pop. So the pop is something very quick. It's possible with a bubble, similar to burst, pop the balloon. Okay, to pop the balloon. So the significance is very, very quick, or very I suppose very quick, or very with velocity. Okay, so to pop the balloon is to burst the balloon very quick. Okay, so the expression to pop the question is to ask the question, maybe in a surprise, unexpected, but very quick, and it's related to relationship. It's related to married. When you marry the person, to ask the person to marry you, you say, you pop the question, because it's very unexpected, it's very dramatic. So pop is like for drama. So to pop the question means to ask somebody to marry you. Okay, so the verb is to marry, the adjective is married, and the noun is marriage. So you can see here the importance of the suffix. Marry is the verb, married is the adjective, and marriage is the noun. Okay, so to pop the question. The next expression is very famous as well and very typical. So in the kitchen, you have the pot and you have the pan. So to make the egg, to fry the egg, you need the pan, and to boil the egg, you need the pot. So there's a big difference between the pot and the pan, and that's very important for sure. The pot and the pan. So normally, I think the pot is black. So this is just a joke. I think it's the stereotype, the typical color of the original pot is black. Okay, because that's the original pot. So this is a metaphor, and the kettle is the object in the kitchen to boil the water. You know, the machine, if you want to make tea, you press the button on the machine to boil the water. Okay, so to boil the water is the verb, and the kettle is the object. In other languages, you can see a kettle here. I'll just do it very, very quickly because it's a little difficult word. The kettle in other languages you can see here. Oof, very Dutch, I love it. Water cooker, which is very literal. And French is very similar to English, to boil. So very good example. And the kettle is the object. So basically, the kettle is typically black. Traditionally, I think, and stereotypically, the pot and the kettle are traditionally black. So it's a metaphor to say the pot is calling, describing the kettle black. It's like an insult or a comment, but it's hypocritical because the pot is the same context. Okay, so it's a very, very famous expression. It's a very typical expression, and the metaphor is, for me, if I criticize you, it's hypocritical because I have the same fault, I have the same problem. So when somebody criticizes another person, they forget they have the same problem. It's very famous and it's very, very good. Okay, pressed for time. So this word is important. The verb is to press. Typical in sport, the football team press the other team, but you need to be very clear with the other word, pressure. Okay, so pressure is the noun, pressurized is the adjective, and here it's also possible pressed in the participle. So I press a person. Also the button, you press the button, but metaphorically you put pressure on the person, so you press, press, press. And if you are pressed for time, it's logical that you have pressure for time. So you don't have a lot of time, you are pressed for time. So it's another way to say you have a lot of pressure with time, so that it's logical and it's literal. Proud, this is important as well. So proud is the adjective and the noun is pride. So you need to be clear with the adjective, proud. So typically with the adjective it's the verb to be. I am proud, you are proud, and the noun is pride. So the general rule with the adjective and the noun is typically the verb to have. You have pride, you have pain, you have hunger, but the adjective is typically with the verb to be. You are proud, you are hungry, you are, I forget the last word, but that's the rule. The verb to be is typically with the adjective, the verb to have is typically with the noun. Okay, it's the same problem with look and lucky. Okay, so look is the noun and lucky is the adjective. So because it's the adjective, you need the verb to be. And this is a classic example as well. So adjective, the verb to be, you are lucky, but the noun, the verb to have, you have luck. Okay, peacock is the typical bird. It's a special bird. The peacock is the special bird with all the colors. You know, it's a strong bird and it has the feathers, plumas. The feathers are different colors, very big feathers. So the peacock is the very I'm going to show you the peacock because it's specific vocabulary. Yeah, you can see the picture here. So this is the peacock. Okay, and typically the peacock is very proud, orgulloso in Espanol. So if you are, it's an expression, proud as a peacock means that you are very, very proud. So you're walking like you have the color. So it's an expression. Okay. The next expression is very, very famous as well, to pull the plug. So this is a very, very good expression. To pull is the opposite to push. So normally we push the door and pull the door. This is very important when you're in a restaurant in a different language. For me in Spain, because I never remember empujar and the other verb in Spanish I never remember. So when I look at the door I never remember the word, but I know obviously you push and you pull. So the verb to pull is this action, and the plug and the socket are very important. Okay, so the socket I think is enchufe in Espanol. So with the telephone, with the computer, you have the plug and you have the socket. So in the wall you have the socket and you have the plug. So the expression to pull the plug is to turn off the computer or to cancel the computer, to cancel the machine, to pull the plug. So this is a metaphor for an event. So if you plan a wedding, you plan a big event and it's necessary to pull the plug, the significance is to cancel. Okay, and maybe because of the pandemic, because of the restrictions, we have pulled the plug on a lot of concerts, a lot of events. So to pull the plug is to cancel. So it's a very, very good expression. It's a metaphor. And I know in Spanish enchufe is like a person, like a contact. So the translation for the enchufe for a person in English is maybe a contact. So it's an expression in Spanish. Necesito un enchufe, or tu conoce un enchufe. No sé si un or una, pero enchufe is the contact in English, or somebody to help you. Okay. The next one is very typical as well. So pull the wool over somebody's eyes. So wool is the material from the sheep. You have the animal, the sheep, and the wool is the material. So the expression is to pull the wool over. Over is the preposition, over my eyes. So it's not possible for me to see, but it's a metaphor to lie. So if I pull the wool over your eyes, I am lying to you, I am tricking you, I am not telling the truth. It's a very famous expression, to pull the wool over somebody's. It could be my eyes, your eyes, his eyes. So to pull the wool over your eyes means to trick somebody or to lie to somebody. Engañar, estafa maybe. Okay. Very common, very frequent expression in conversation. And then finally, the last one is a very good one as well. It's a bit difficult. So pull out is understandable. In relation to the plug you pull out because it's in. So pull out is literal. There is a phrasal verb to pull out, means to cancel as well. So if you are committed to the agreement, you're committed, and then suddenly, de repente, you pull out. So you cancel or you leave the commitment. So you have a compromise, you have an agreement, and then suddenly you say no, I pull out, I change my opinion, I change my mind. So to pull out all all the stops is a little bit different. So the verb is to stop, no problem, but the noun is the stop, and I don't know exactly here the significance in the origin, but I think it's related to the telephone, and you put the stop is the object in the hole. So to pull out all the stops means that you do everything, you do your maximum, you do your best to make something happen. So you want to create the wedding. It's very difficult to create the wedding because you have pressure on time, pressure on money, but you pull out all the stops. So you do your best, you work brilliant, and you try to make the party happen or try to make the wedding happen. Okay, really good. So that's just a list of idioms and a list of expressions. So very good today. We had a little introduction. We continued with an article to look at the grammar and the vocabulary, and then we continued with the idioms. Okay, so really, really nice quality, a lot of good work, a lot of good vocabulary, a lot of good expressions, and I hope you understand the majority. I will put all the comments in, all the notes in the comments below the video. After the class, I put all the document, all the notes in the class. You can leave a comment if you want. If you have any questions, you can ask me in a comment. Now, if you want to participate in the Zoom, you can ask a question if you want to participate on Zoom. That's the code. And remember, today we have a specific webinar at 4 o'clock in relation to the IELTS exam. It would be very, very good, and you are welcome to join. It's at 4 p.m. in Ireland on Zoom, approximately 1 hour, and we look at the exam. If you want to join, just contact me. There's a small fee, but it's really, really good. And remember, everything is free. So the class in the morning is free. It's a good opportunity for me. I want to help. Yes, I want to help. And obviously people have problems with the pandemic, and people are working from home, and it's difficult to learn English. So it's a very good opportunity for me to help, and it's a good opportunity for you. So it's my work, and hopefully I can continue teaching in the future. So it's my work, and if you can, and if you feel you want to support me and you want to give me a little tip, you can donate a small quantity, for example €1 in Europe, or in England £1. If you want to give me or donate me €1 or a small quantity, it's possible in 3 or 4 ways. The bank transfer is very easy. So the IBAN and the BIC, the information for the bank transfer is here at the bottom left. The information for Revolut, this is an application to transfer, is my telephone number, or TransferWise, or Bizum, or PayPal. So to connect with PayPal, it's this code or the website. So it's my job, and if you want to help me, it would be very, very good. Thank you to everybody who helped me already. It's a big help, and it's very nice support, and it will permit me to continue working in this way. I hope you enjoyed the class. I hope you learned some vocabulary, and I hope you enjoy all the material. of course, Instagram. You can connect on Instagram, and I think that's everybody. I know we have somebody in the Zoom, so if you want to participate in the Zoom now, just raise your hand and we can practice a little. But if not, we will finish the Facebook class. And again, thank you everybody so much. And finally, that's the connection on social media. So I hope you have a very good day, and yeah, hopefully see you later today with the IELTS webinar. And